Good Tvach. How's everybody doing? Tvach. Let me know if the sound is okay, Gary. Thank you. All right. Today's shir is being sponsored by, could you see it now? Lila Nishmas Brocha Baz David Aleh Shalom. I believe that's Noam's grandmother, sponsored by Noam's mother. Sponsored, the Neshama should have an aliyah. Sponsored by the Sherman family of Kew Garden Hills in memory of their grandmother and great-grandmother, Shendel Bas Zev Wolf, whose yahrzeit is today, 27th of Tammuz. The Neshama should have an aliyah. Oh, listen to this email from Matt Hoffman. Rebbe, you helped our Shalom Bayis. That is a good thing, since my wife and I counsel couples for free. See, you get free Shalom Bayis classes here if you teach other people for free. My wife wanted my son Akiva and me to learn Daf Yomi. We wanted to learn Shabbos, Biyun. Because of you, we can both do it. We can do both. Sorry, because of you, we can do both. Iyun and Bekiyus. Morning by morning, and Akiva and I sit closely together and share your wonderful shiurim. Then we learn Biyun, great father and son binding, and my wife smiles lovingly at us. Akiva will be bar mitzvah on Tu B'Av. Thanks for all you do for us. Matt Hoffman. We also have another Akiva Solway, who bonds with his father, and they do the daf together, right? Where's Akiva? Somewhere here. All right, beautiful. Here's another one, a long one. We'll just skip around. Yossi Saunders from England somewhere. Hope you're well. Thanks for reading my... He offered me a free advertising in the Jewish Weekly, which stocks England and Belgium. Yeah, we had this. Since the cruise ship won't pay for itself, I've followed with Baisley from Fischl Catering and come up with a revolutionary new idea to ramp up funds ahead of a presumed large deposit the cruise ship will need. He's trying to get us some money for the cruise ship for the Siyum. I would like to be the first one to sponsor the emails. He wants to sponsor emails. Okay. Please let me know what this costs, and continued Hatzlach with all your hard work and preparation for this brilliant and unique shir. Regards, Yossi Saunders, the Jewish Weekly, from London and Belgium, from England and Belgium. Shkoyach Reb Yossi. All right, we're holding 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 lines from the bottom of Kuf Lamed Gimel Beis. Today is Daf Kuf Lamed Daled. Everybody here is good. It's okay. Say there. We're good. Very nice.
The picture's not so clear. I don't know why, but we hear you fine.
If anybody wants to see a better picture, you go on YouTube. It's better than Zoom usually. Ever since you fiddled around with the settings and you made it better, I think it made it worse. I don't know. Metsitzah. So we learned in the Mishnah that one of the things you're allowed to do on Shabbos is Metsitzah, to draw the blood. Omer Papa, Hayu Mona Deloy Mayitz, a male who doesn't do Metsitzah, Sakanahu. He creates a sakana with the baby, Va'abrinulei, and we must remove him from his job. He can no longer be a male. Pshita, says the Gemara, Midikam Echalei, Shapso Sakanahu. Listen to these words, the very, very important words. Says the Gemara Pshita. Why is it pasha that you have to remove him? Midikam Echalei Alei Shapso. Since you're Mechalel Shabbos to do the Metsitzah, Sakanahu. Obviously, there's a big sakana if you don't do Metsitzah. So many want to say that from this Gemara you see that Metsitzah is for the welfare of the baby, but not part of the Mila. And why is that a huge nafkimina? A huge nafkimina would be whether or not you're mechuyev to do Metsitzah b'peh. If the Gemara over here says the whole reason why we do it is because sakana, the Gemara should say, of course you should throw out a mile because he's only doing half the Bris Mila. He's not doing a very fundamental part of the Bris Mila called Metsitzah. But the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says the reason why we remove him is because it's dangerous for the baby. Isn't that mashma that it's not such a chiyuv? Metsitzah is not such a chiyuv, it seems like. We'll get into it in a second. Mao the same Mahai Dam Ifkat Pocket, says the Gemara. I would think that the blood is, I don't know what Yonah Simcha is, but he's trying to control my camera. we're going to decline that. So I would think that dam mifkat pocket. In other words, the blood that the Metsitzah is creating, you're drawing blood. So perhaps that blood is already out of the body. It's sitting somewhere in the bris and you have to pull it out. Ememela what? It's not a Issa D'Oraisa. Why? It's not a chabura. What is it? Stop. You're removing blood. You're allowed to take blood that's on top of your finger and wash it off. The Isser is chabura, to draw blood. Says the Gemara, Kamash malon chaburi mechaber. No, the blood is in the body, and I am drawing it out of the body, and I'm creating a chabura. V'dumi this balonis v'kamoin, and it's similar to the bandage that you throw on some kamoin, you throw on ointment. Mais balonis v'kamoin kiloyavet sakonu. If you don't do it, it's a sakonu for the baby. Av hanenami kiloyavet sakonu. Hanami, this Metsitzah, if you don't do, it's a sakona for the baby. So bottom line is, I could give you a little bit of information, not all of it. The controversy or the shaila about Metsitzah b'peh. So the Ramah paskins, you must do Metsitzah b'peh. You cannot use some of these modern devices of, what is it called, a tube, and put your mouth on the tube. What happened was, the maskilim were very uncomfortable with the whole Metsitzah b'peh. So it's not proper bizman hazeh for an adult to do such a thing. And then they said it was a sakana. In fact, they brought different rayas, sakana. So the Chassam Sofer, he agreed. He said, listen, if it's sakana, you don't have to do Metsitzah b'peh. You see from this Gemara that it's not halacha. You don't need it for the Bris Mila. It's more for sakana. Now, if there's another sakana called whatever, some sort of disease that comes through the mile, then don't do it. But many were fire against it because it originated from the maskilim. Similar like today, you'll never see someone walk outside with an umbrella because that wasn't a maskilim thing. The maskilim, they brought the whole thing that you should go out on Shabbos with an umbrella. Now, halachically, it's probably not even a problem to walk around with an umbrella. It's not the oil that we care about. But today, because of the maskilim, we have to be careful. Similarly, I'm saying this as a joke, but it's almost usher to learn Navi today. Which yeshiva learns Navi? Also, a problem that the maskilim raised. So too, this... Wait a minute. I have to say something. Avram, here we go. Avram, Manishma. Haven't seen you in a while. Here you go. Okay. Good. I thought you were mad at me because that one day you came to the Beis Medrash and Yeshua said we're not accepting anybody. Good. It's good to see you here, Motzei Shabbos. Anyway, so bottom line is like this. There's no bottom line. This Dechemed wrote a whole kuntris called Metsitzah b'peh, and I think it's called Metsitzah, something about Metsitzah. And he brings there all the Gdolim, and Rav Shmuel Salant said you have to do it. B'kitzer, one last thing. Rav Vosner said that he was in the presence of the Chazon Ish and at a Bris Mila, and the Chazon Ish saw the Rav Vosner, who was Hungarian, whatever Hasidish, he was very makbid on Metsitzah b'peh, and he said, you Hasidim, you have to continue with that milchama. Unfortunately, by us, the Litvish, this tube thing already creeped its way in, unfortunately. That was his lashon. So you guys continue with your milchama. Us, we're not going to fight that much about it. But anyway, those are the tzdadim. So mitzadechot from this Gemara is really mashma. It's not so terrible to do with a tube. So why did all these G'dalim go so fire against it? It seems like because there was something about the maskilim, that they're the ones that raised this whole, it's not proper, bizmanenu, and the sakana, da. It just so happened to be, I don't know if we weren't learning the sugi and I wasn't paying so much attention, but I think I saw like on Yeshiva World News or something, that a baby got what is it? One of these hepatitis, I don't even know what of these tituses, and he was like almost going to die. They said it came from the mile. Now, and Rebbe Yashiv says, shtusim, you can't get sick from a mile. Kids are a whole back and forth. It's a big sugya. I'm not passing, I'm just telling you whatever little that I know. Weiter. V'noisnem alayis palanis. Omar Abaya. We're going to have a whole Amud here, all the way to Daf Kuf Lamed Daled on the bottom about all these refuahs. We're going back to refuahs and different things. Amrli aim. Once again, Abayo was a Yasam, Asher B'chol Yerucham Yasam. He was raised. Who was it? Rabba. Who was his? Forgot already whose wife it was. She's very chashiv. Amrli aim. And he always says Amrli aim. And we had it in Masechta Shabbos dozens of times already, or at least a dozen times. My mother, meaning my stepmother, taught me, is planisa de kula in keve. Anytime you have a problem, you want to put a bandage, shav minoi tarbo v'chada kiro. What you do is, you take 7 doses of fat, v'chada kiro, and 1 dose of wax. That's how you heal things. Rav Omar. And again, if we're going to go according to the Maharsha that says that these Omerli aims and these kinds of things are really remuzim, they're scattered through Shas. These are from the Sefer Harufuos, from Yecheskel. Fine. Rava Omar, listen to this. Interesting story here. Rava said, Kira v'kalba. You take some wax and you take some resin from a tree. Darsha Rava b'mechayza. Rava gets up in Beis Medrash and he tells the Olam, you want to know how to heal yourself? You take some wax, you take some resin, heal. Says the Gemara, Karinu b'nei Menyoimi Asya. There was a doctor, his name was Menyoimi. His children were the sons of a doctor. They ripped Kriya. They couldn't believe that Rava gave away their trade secret. They were making millions. People would come in, they would make a little concoction, put it on their wound and heal them. Rava gets up in public and gives out the secret. Omar lahu shafki luchu chada. So by the way, today I'm learning this Gemara, and I remembered that I learned a similar story somewhere. But I can't go outside and ask my chavrusa. So I screamed from my rooftop. I said, "Yedidya, where's that story?" He says it's in Avodah Zarah. I was really embarrassed because I learned Avodah Zarah close to 40 times and I forgot. Anyway, I went back. I found it. It's in Avodah Zarah Daf Chav Ches. The Gemara says a great story over there. The Rabbi Yochanan.
Amud Aleph or Amud Beis?
You know where it is, Avi. Where is it? You tell me. You heard.
Amud Aleph.
That's right, it was an Amud Aleph. So he was at that minyan when I was screaming. It's a crazy story. He went to this lady, I don't think she was Jewish, and she gave him some sort of thing that you have to put on for a number of days. But he said, but listen, I can't come to you on the 5th day. Tell me the secret. She says, I can't tell you the secret. So he says, I'll swear to you. So he says, okay, if you swear to me, I'll give you the secret. So he swears to her, and then he runs to the Beis Medrash and he tells the whole world what the secret was. Because he wanted his Talmidim to know how to heal themselves. So what about Chil Hashem? The Gemara says he told her right away. But anyway, when you know something good, you let the Olam know. Says the Gemara. So Rava says, don't rip Kriya yet. There's one trick I didn't tell everybody. I left you one thing. If you wash your face and you don't dry it properly, Nikterule chaspaniisa, and he has a bunch of welts or whatever. Maita kante, what should he do? Limshe tuva b'maya the silka holding nafkuf lamadaladom and aleph on top. Wash your face with beet juice. So when all these people come into your office and they have some sort of problem with their skin on their face, what you do is you take this beet juice. You don't tell them it's beet juice. You smear it all over them, and that's it. So I saved you. You can still have parnasa. Says the Gemara, Lo shochak merev Shabbos tanu rabbanon. So the Mishnah described if you have cumin and you didn't grind it down, what do? You chew it on Shabbos. You chew it. So it's a shinui. But there are things that you could do on Yontif for the Bris Mila that you can't do on Shabbos.
Your sound went off, Eli.
What?
Oh, there you go. We lost you for about 2 seconds.
Ooh.
We didn't hear you.
All right, so we'll start again. There are things that you are not permitted to do on Shabbos with Bris Mila, but you could do them on Yontif. So we said in the Mishnah that you cannot grind cumin. You have to do it in your mouth. On Yontif, you could grind cumin. Why? Because on Yontif, I could use the cumin for something else. I can make a dish. So anything that has to do with oichel nefesh, I'm allowed to do. So you can do it for Bris Mila. I take the mixture of wine and oil that we had in the Mishnah, and I beat it really hard, really well, which I cannot do on Shabbos, as the Mishnah describes. All I can do is pour the two ingredients into a bowl. V'zehu, I can't mix it up. What's the difference between oil and cumin? You're telling me cumin is good for some other dish. Okay, there's no real dish that has wine and oil in it, says the Gemara, but I can use it for a chayla shein ber sakana. The sanya and toifen yayin b'shem and l'chayla b'Shabbos. You don't mix the two together. This is very important. Who's the author of this halacha? Rebbe Meir. Why is this important? Because who's the author of our Mishnah? The author of our Mishnah is Rebbe Meir. Although his name is not mentioned. Stam Mishnah, Rebbe Meir. So we have halacha from Rebbe Meir that kind of contradicts our Mishnah. It says, you could mix oil and wine for a chayla. There's a story time. Remeir had a stomach problem. So he said, let's beat up some wine and oil. And he said, no. What? You're taking back your own words in your own lifetime? You're the one that said you're allowed to do it. Even though I say this way, my friends argue with me. I don't want to go against my friends. So this is not worth 10,000 points, but for 500 points, where do we just have this thing that a very big Tana said, I don't want to go against my friends? Anybody? I'm going to take a drink here while you guys think about it. Rabbi Yossi said, even if my friends tell me I'm a kohen and I should duchen, I'm going to do duchening. Even though I know I'm not a kohen, I don't argue with my friends. You remember this? How could you forget such a Gemara? Says Gemara, who knew the machman nafshay? So he himself will go like his friends and not beat up oil and wine on Shabbos. But everybody else, he allows it. Oh, so if he allows it for everybody else, Rebbe Meir holds that you're allowed to do it on Shabbos. So if you're allowed to do it on Shabbos, and Rebbe Meir, our Mishnah goes according to Rebbe Meir, so how come over here we can't use this oil and wine? How come we can't beat it on Yom Tov? Says Gemara, lika. So lika means to beat it well. For the Bris Mila, it needs to be very thin. It needs to be a very nice mixture of wine and oil, and therefore you can't do it in our Mishnah. Let him pour the ingredients in and don't beat it very hard. Says Gemara, exactly, that's what it says in our Mishnah. That's exactly what it says in the Mishnah. Look at the Mishnah. It says, if you didn't put it in every shot. So you ask me why you shouldn't beat it? That's exactly what the Mishnah says. Don't beat it, just throw it in a bowl and put that on the bris. We're talking about on Yom Tov. The mustard seeds have some sort of sieve that you pour the seeds in. The small seeds come out on the bottom, and the chaff and the rest stays on top. You're not allowed to do that on Shabbos because it looks like butter. And you cannot sweeten up the mustard with coals. Why? Because what happens is you put a coal into the mustard, and eventually, so some of the heat goes out and makes the mustard sweet, but the mustard is going to overcome the coal and put the coal out. Can't do that. It's mechaba. How come I can take an egg, put in a raw egg into this misanenet, and out comes the white part, and the yolk stays on top? Rashi says, says Rashi, at the end of the day, the yolk also comes out, or the yolk is also edible. So therefore, it doesn't look like butter. This looks more like butter. Now, why is it only mechzik butter? So Tosfos points out, it only looks like butter because at the end of the day, whatever stays on top is edible. So it's oichel and oichel. You can't sweeten up the mustard seeds with a coal. It says in another place you could sweeten it up with a coal. We had a number of times already in the Masechta that if you, like we said, if you want to take a wick, mechaba is melacha shein tzrich legufa. Right? You don't really need to extinguish the flame. You just don't want a flame. It's bothering you. You don't want a flame. So how do you make extinguishing a flame a melacha shetzrich legufa? If you want the ashes. Oh, so if you have a coal that's made out of wood and you extinguish it, then you are creating ashes, and ashes are a problem. So that's why if it's a coal made out of wood, it's also to extinguish. You can't put it in your mustard seeds. But if it's a coal made out of metal, nothing happens. You're extinguishing, no, but nothing. You're not gaining anything. The metal remains as is. Or when you make a barbecue on coals, so the juices of the meat, they come out, and eventually they're going to extinguish the coals. Why is that allowed on Yontif? And all of a sudden, when it comes to mustard, it's usher to extinguish the coal. So this is a big aside. Since I cannot make a barbecue erev Yontif, the meat is not going to taste good. So I'm allowed to make the barbecue. It's eichel nefesh. Whatever happens, happens. But since I could sweeten my mustard erev Yontif, so I have no right to sweeten it today when it's going to extinguish the coal. So the nafkamina efshar lo efshar. By lo efshar, if I cannot accomplish what I need to accomplish for the food today, then I'm allowed to do it today, even if it's going to extinguish the coal. Amalei Abai Rav Yosef. Ma'oli gabing. You're allowed to make cheese on Yontif. So, if you remember, my favorite Taisvis, the Taisvis says that making cheese is boina, and therefore, if you have boina by cheese, which midaraisa you're allowed to do, it's only midarabbanan, so you're allowed to build a house on Yontif. If your house falls down because of hayal, mitoich, since I'm allowed to make a fire for eichel nefesh, I'm allowed to make a fire for something else. So too, since I'm allowed to make cheese for boina, I'm allowed to make cheese on Yontif, even though it's boina, so I'm allowed to build a house if my house fell down and I don't have another way out of it. That's what Tosfos says. But it's also, why is it also? Uvda dechol. That's why it's also over here also. It doesn't look good. It's not Shabbos dik, it's not Yontif dik to start building a house on Yontif, to start making cheese on Yontif. These are uvda dechol. Says the Gemara, Malagabin, Amalei also, you're not allowed to make cheese on Yontif. Maishna Melisha. Why is it mutter to knead dough on Yontif? Amalei, same idea, Hasam le'yavshar, you can't knead dough erev Yontif and just let it stay until knead dough before Yontif. You don't have a refrigerator, it's going to get spoiled. So you have to do it today. But cheese, when do you make cheese? You make cheese days in advance. You don't have to make it today. Says the Gemara, but Nardoi say that fresh cheese from today is great. It's better even. So if so, shouldn't I make the cheese today? It's better tasting. It's considered lo yafshar. Lo yafshar. I'm allowed to be mechal Yontif or do whatever. There's no avdei d'chol. Says the Gemara, this is what they meant in Nardoi. We all know aged cheese is better. But it means that it's also good today. But the cheese from yesterday is even better. So Mamela, I don't have an excuse to make it today. There's no reason for me to make it today. It's not considered lo yavshar. If it tasted better, you're right, lo yavshar. But if it tastes better yesterday, so do it yesterday, the day before. There's no reason to do it today. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, you don't make a sleeve for the bris. Amar Abaya, Amar Liyain. Again, here comes his mother. Hi cholok de yunuko, lefalin lesitra li'iloi. So you have a sleeve, and then the sleeve, imagine socks in those days, right? They didn't have all the, what do you call it? They didn't have the rubber and the this and that. So it was a little sloppy. The ends, the hems were very rough at the edges. Rough at the edges, perfect. So you have to fold the edges in. Why? Because you have all these threads at the end, and one of the threads can get caught in the wound of the Mila. Don't even imagine this. Dilma madbik, it'll get glued in there, stuck in there. And then he'll yank off the sleeve, Rahman al-Islan, and it'll cause grave damage where this child won't be able to have children. Krushavcha. Says the Gemara, Imad Abaya, and Rashi on the spot says, Imad Abaya doesn't mean his mother. Again, it's talking about the same mother we always talk about, his stepmother of the kisesol palga. What she would do is she would make a lining inside this sleeve. In other words, a soft lining so it shouldn't get stuck in the bris. Amar Abaya, hayinuka the leis lecholok. Let's say you don't have a sleeve. Leisa belisa, this leisifsa. Bring this very rough thing that you have, rough at the edges thing. And what do you do with it? You take the rough edges and you put it, I don't know if I should make a muscle here. Fine. Here, this is the body, right over here. This is the bris. So you put it over here, closer to the body. In other words, where there's no wound. So if there's no wound, it's not going to harm the baby, but the opposite. It's going to get stuck in the skin and it won't come off. So it's actually beneficial to have those rough edges because it grabs the skin of the baby and it won't fall off. I need a sleeve. I need to protect the baby. The part that's closer to the Bris Mila, that part I fold over. Make sure that it's also smooth. You have a child that now we're going away from the Bris Mila, we're going to the other area. G'dailim, number 2. There's no opening in the body, Rahman al-Islam. So what do? L'shayfei mishcha, you rub oil, v'loik milad yoyma, and you put it in the sun. You look in the sun. The zig, where the skin is clear, in other words, that's where the opening should have been. L'kari b'saratas shesiv, you make like an X with a barley, the edge of a barley, which is sharp. Do not use a knife. Mishum the zarif, it'll swell, it's not good. This baby that doesn't nurse, his mouth is cold. What should you do? Leisu koso gumre. Bring a cup of coals, then you spread it on a flat surface, says Rashi, and put it next to his mouth. Then his mouth will warm up and he'll start nursing. I want to play a game with you guys, so listen carefully to these things. What's the first one? The first one is a baby that doesn't nurse. You take coals, because his mouth is cold, you take coals, you put it by his mouth, warms up his mouth, he'll start nursing. This baby it doesn't look like he's breathing very well. And Rashi even goes as far as say, I'm not exactly sure what he's saying. He says like he's not breathing, he doesn't look like he has a pulse even. You should blow him. Funny, Rashi says the word van. Van, a V is really a F in English, a fan. You take a fan and you blow on him. So here's the game. I'm going to tell you 2 pshatim. And you're going to tell me afterwards what sefer says it. I'm going to tell you the names of the svarim, and you're going to have to guess. Here's the 2 pshatim. First pshat is like this. It's again in Kabbalah, sort of. This baby that's not nursing is the pshat. This is a baby that doesn't like to learn. It's a kid that doesn't like learning. It doesn't have a geschmack in learning. So what do? You give him a geschmack. You show him how beautiful Torah is. You bring the coals. You show him the fire, the geschmack, and then he's going to grab onto it. Next, this baby that's not breathing. What's pshat not breathing? Not breathing means he doesn't have your shemayim. He's not connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He doesn't have ear. He's not. So what do? You take a fan, and you blow in front of him. Meaning you have to show him. You have to be an example to him. You have to show him mitzvahs in front of him. You blow in front of his face, says the Gemara. So here's the Shiloh. Who said these 2 pshatim? Ben Yoyada or Gaivad Eliyahu? Ben Yoyada is thumbs up. Gaivad Eliyahu is thumbs down. No? He says Ben Yoyada. Rabbi David. Shlomo Sanders. The pshat is that bad? Wow. Okay, hold on. I have to go to the next screen. Next screen. Oh! Dov Erlich says what? Both? Shalway. Thumbs up. Okay. So the answer is, the first pshat is the Ben Yoyada. The second pshat is my own. That's it. That's all I understand.
I like this.
Okay, you're macham. You're macham into the emes. Weiter. Limfefei ben avosov und manches. Omer Abai. Omer Liyei. Hayinuka de loy ma'ave, leisu siloso diime, vilishrigalave ume'ave. You take the placenta, the afterbirth, and you put it on him. V'omar abaya omer liyim hayinuka de katan. He's not eating well. Leisu lesilta diime, vilishrigalave mikutna lu'ulma. So what do? You take the placenta from the narrow part and you put it on him from the narrow part to the wide part. Because we're trying to go from small to big. We're trying to get him big. V'alim, let's say he's blown up, not that he's fat, not that he's geschmack, gesund, the opposite. He's sickly. He's blown up from like a chas v'shalom, like the kids in Africa, the kids that are starving. They're blown up. V'alim mu'ul malakutna. So then you take the wide part, and that's what you put on him first, to the small part to show that we're trying to get him to shrink a little bit. A baby that's red, the pshat is that his blood wasn't absorbed in his body well. You should wait. Don't do any mila until the blood goes into its place. The aroik, if he's yellow, and again, the pshat in yellow, according to the Gemara over here, is the pshat that the blood is not absorbed well in the body. So you have to wait until the blood goes into its place, and you are moilim. Oh, by the way, I have to tell you the story because I forgot to tell you the story. In that pshat, I was saying that you have to be an example to your children. Living for Be'ape, because of Avi Kamiansky is a big chassid of Zev Cohen. And I heard a beautiful maisa from him once. The maisa goes like this. It's a very simple maisa, but it has a good message. There's a guy that came home from work every day, exhausted. And he would go to the table, every single day the same story. Come home 8, 9 o'clock at night after a whole day of work. He would open up his Gemara, and then he would fall asleep. Every day. So they asked him, what's pshat? Why, just go to sleep. Why do you open the Gemara and then go to sleep? He said, no. I want my children to see what's important to me. To me, it's important to open up a Gemara. I fall asleep, that's something else. I'm very tired. But they should see that that's what's important to me. Anyway, fine. Back to here. Two stories, almost identical, with the same outcome. Says Reb Nosson, I went overseas. A woman, she lost a child during the Bris Mila. Sheni v'meis. A second child died during the Bris Mila. Shlishi, that's it. The third one, she had a problem. Now, there's a whole sugin Yavamas. If you have two children that died during your Bris Mila, are you allowed to even mal the second one? Is two chazaka or three chazaka? But there's a concept of the children that died during Bris Mila, you don't do Mila. They talk about this Gemara, how does it fit in, etc. So that's why, l'chayra, they brought, the Gemara over there says, Taisa says over there, that our Gemara goes, according to the Mandaman, it says 2 is a chazaka. That's why they didn't want to give her, this third kid, a Mila. They brought the kid to Reb Nosson. Reis of Shu Adayim. I noticed that the kid is red. He's a redhead. No, I'm just kidding, no, where's no? He's red. It's a no-brainer. The reason why the brothers died, because they didn't wait enough. The kid is red. His brother's probably also red. I have a way out of this. Just wait until the blood gets absorbed, and that's it. So they waited, and she gave him a milah v'chaya, and the kid lived. They used to call the kid Nasan Abavli, not just Nasan. It seems like Nasan Abavli. The big Shiloh. My son is Elazar Menachem, named after Rav Shach. Rav Shach came to my bar mitzvah. I had a lot of stories with Rav Shach for a different time. So we had a Shiloh. Do we name him Elazar Menachem Man? Or not? So they said no. Rav Elyashiv said not to name Man. Man is the name of a city. His name is Elazar Menachem. So most people call Elazar Menachem, but that's Nasan Abavli, Elazar Man, same thing. It's interesting. Call the city. He went to another place. And a woman came. Two of her children were lost during Mila. Third one's here. I see that he's yellow, not red, yellow. Hitzatzi boy. So hitzatzi over here is like he peeked. It's like he looked at the Mila before he looked at the body. Hitzatzi. By dam bris. I noticed that there's no dam bris. So Rashi says there's two problems here. Very important thing. Halacha number one. Halacha number one, we're almost on the bottom of Kuf Lamed Daled Amud Aleph. Halacha number one is that in order to perform a Bris Mila, in order for a bris to be kosher, you need blood. You hear? It's a halacha. You need atofas dam. So Mela, he looked, he checked, he saw there's no blood there. You're going to do a Mila, you're not going to be yaitz of the Mila anyways. Second of all, this kid is going to die because there's no blood over there. So Memela, don't do the bris. Wait until the blood comes in and everything is good. And she waited, she listened to Reb Nasan. And from that day on, they called this child Nasan Abavli. Two stories, same result. Daf Kuf Lamed Daled base. The turning of the page was sponsored by Fischl. Is he running out? We have to see when we started saying Fischl at a different time. Fine. Says the Mishnah. Marchitzin is hakoton bein lifnei amilo, bein la'achar amilo. In those days, the one picture I have for today, not that it's necessary, but if you look closely, I noticed something very interesting. Here's a pot of hot water. What is this? So it's not, right when you look at it the first time, you say that the mother is giving a bath to her baby. If you look at it closely, perhaps she's just splashing water on him with her hand. Because that's a discussion in the Gemara. Or actually in the Mishnah mentions it, but it's a discussion on what's allowed, what's not allowed. So could be Yoni try to avoid any controversy. I don't know, maybe, is this over here water? I don't know, but certainly her hand is full of water and she's going like this to the kid. So in those days, in the time of the Mishnah, it was a thing to wash the baby with hot water, obviously hot, before the Mila, to make him strong. And it was a thing to wash the baby afterwards with hot water. There shouldn't be a sakana. The Mishnah Berurah says, in our days, it doesn't exist, and he says, Nishtanu atvayim. That's what he says. Our bodies are different today. We don't need it, it's not necessary. So this whole Mishnah doesn't apply to us. So even on Shabbos, you're permitted to wash the baby, even for the pre-wash and the post-Mila wash. And you take water and you sprinkle the water. Now the Gemara right away is going to ask. It says marchitzim, you're allowed to wash the baby in a bath. And then it says you sprinkle him. Which one is it? You should do it with your hand, and don't use like a negelvasser thing and start pouring water like a lot of people. Only with your hand. You could wash the baby even 3 days after his Bris Mila. Why? We all know this. Shenemar vayi bayom hashlishi by Shechem. Shimon and Levi came to Shechem and they killed everybody out when? Bayom hashlishi. B'yoisam koyavim. So, question. We all learned this pasuk in Cheder. The third day they were koyavim. So let me ask you something. What about the first day? Why didn't Shimon and Levi kill them on the first day? Well, the third day they were more pain than the first day? So the answer is, the Rishonim talk about it here in the Sugya, and they say that the first day is a greater sakana, as we're going to see. The second day is a greater sakana. The third day, they were just weak. In terms of warfare, they were weak. So that's why they hit them on the third day. But in terms of how much sakana there is, there's more sakana on the first day and the second day than on the third day. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah Vayter, Sofek van Dregenus. if you have a baby that's a suffix. So we're going to see in the Gemara different sfekas. Rashi says, for instance, the baby was born in the 8th month. If the baby is born in the 8th month, according to the Gemara, it's like a stone. You could basically ignore this baby, let it die, whatever, you feed it, just whatever. But in times of the Gemara, baby born in the 8th month, not viable. But what if we don't know if it was born in the 8th month? Maybe it was born on the last day of the 8th month, first day of the 9th month, whatever, we have some sort of suffix. Are you machal Shabbos for this baby? If it's a baby that you know for a fact it's not viable, you don't do Bris Mila on Shabbos. A baby born in the 8th, you're not machal Shabbos for that kind of baby. Let it die. Certainly you're not going to go be machal Shabbos for something that doesn't need, it's going to die anyways in a few days. But what's a suffix? Bandages, a baby that has both zachrus and nakvus. It's an zachar and an keva together. Ein mechalim ovis haShabbos. You're not mechal Shabbos for it. You don't do Bris Mila. Rabbi Yehuda matir bandages. Rabbi Yehuda matir to do a Bris Mila on bandages. Says the Gemara. Let's understand Pshat in the Mishnah. V'amris reishon marchitzin. Says you can throw a baby into a bath before the bris. Then it says, a second later, you should sprinkle some water on it nicely. What's Pshat? Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Baravua, both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Baravua say, the Mishnah is just explaining the ratio. There is no bath according to these two Amoraim. Marchitzin is hakotan bein lifnei milo bein lachar milo ketzad. What does it mean, marchitzin? You thought it meant a bath. No. The only way you're allowed to wash the baby is with sprinkling of water. I missed that shayla. What is he saying? No difference of what? What was the shayla? I don't know. Okay. See, Menachem Mata is saying something.
Well, you shouldn't be reading the comments.
Oh, okay. No, I don't want to read all the comments, but it looked like there's some sort of shayla and halacha here. Sorry. Okay, you got this. You got this.
The question is, what's the din of a baby that's born in the 8th month these days?
Oh, these days, yeah, it's viable. I don't think it's an issue. I don't think it's Nagel or Maisa today. I never heard of a baby that died from being born in the 8th month. Did you? You're saying, since the Gemara says that it's that you don't do, so could you do a Bris Mila on Shabbos? That's what you're asking? Yeah. I'm assuming that they pass him that you do a Bris Mila on Shabbos. That's what I'm assuming. Again, don't take any psakim from me. All my Rava. So you hear you hear what's going on here? That you're supposed to sprinkle the baby with water. Forget this whole marchitzin is not exactly. So that's why you only put in the picture over here. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's a sprinkle. It's not a real bath. Okay. Oh my Rava. Marchitzin ktani. I noticed, by the way, that Rava is very much the shitasa, so to speak, in all of Shas. He constantly is very exact with the words. He doesn't like when people, we had it recently also with Abaye. Abaye said it's this, I said loy, and he said no. The Mishnah, what the Mishnah says, let's try to figure out within the Mishnah. It says the word marchitzin. The Mishnah just said a word of rechitza, which means mamish, a real gezunta bath. You're going to tell me it's a sprinkle? Come on. Marchitzin is hakotam bein milifnei milo bein lachar milo b'yom harishon kedarkoi. On the first day, according to Rashi, on the second day. But on the third day, in other words, there's a machloikis on the third day only. According to Rav, there's a machloikis on the third. When the Mishnah says marchitzim, the Mishnah was serious. You put him in a real bath. When? On the first and second day. Even if the first day falls out on Shabbos, you put him in a bath. Second day, put him in a bath. But on the third day, that falls out on Shabbos, that's what the machloikis is. Tanakama says, Mizalfin, what do you do on the third day? You just sprinkle him with some water. Don't give him a real bath. You could throw him in a bath as well. I'll prove it to you from the pasuk. Okay. So according to Rava, the machlokes is on the third day. Tanakama said the Rava, I have a brisa that says mamish like Rava. This is very important. We have a brisa, a real straight out brisa. It says mafurish in the brisa, you give him a bath. But on the third day, this is mamish what Rava was saying. You give him a real bath, but on the third day, you sprinkle. Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah Omer, Machitzin Sakotim Yom HaShlishi, Shchalis B'Shabbos. Comes Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah and he argues on the third day. Don't do any sprinkling. Do a real bath. I don't have a mamish, a straight out pasuk, but I have a nice hint of a pasuk. From Shechem, you see that the third day is very dangerous as well. If it's very dangerous, therefore, you could give him a real bath. Wait a minute. When you sprinkle, who says sprinkling? Rebbe Elazar says you don't sprinkle, you give him a real bath. Oh, I saw in the Tanna Kama. We're going back to the Tanna Kama. Tanna Kama says that on the third day you sprinkle. Don't sprinkle with a cup, sprinkle with your hands. And the Gemara just goes on to finish this up. Why is not a beautiful pasuk? It's a straight out pasuk that says that on the third day the baby is in sakana. Says the Gemara, Mishum the Gadol Bris Mila. We're not talking about babies. We're talking about Shechem. Shechem were adults, and an adult doesn't heal as well. Adult maybe on the third day is mamish and sakana, but a baby who is a quick healer, maybe the third day is not such a sakana. Says the Gemara story. A guy comes to Rava and he says, "Listen, I have a baby. What should I do? Could I wash him before the bris on the first? It was on the first day." Says the Gemara, so of course Rava passing like himself. That what? You're allowed to wash a baby in a bath on the first day. That the whole machlokes is only on the third day. But everybody agrees that on the first day you can use a bath. Ichlash Rava. Says the Gemara, a story. It's an unbelievable story and a lesson. Ichlash Rava. Rava became sick. So when a person becomes sick, what does he do? He starts doing a cheshbon and nefesh. He says, wait a minute, why am I, Rava, getting sick? It must have to do with something I just did today. Why did I argue on Rav Yehuda and Rabbi Bar Avua? I had no business arguing with them. I shouldn't have passed like myself. Says the Gemara, but the Talmidei Chacham were there. They said, what are you so upset? We just read a brayso that says exactly like you. So Yeshal Milismach. It's not like you're arguing with Amarayim, with Rav Yehuda and Rav. You have Tanaim that say like you. You know, in truth, Rav Yehuda and Rav Ravuna have something strong here. Our old Mishnah, forget about the brides. The Mishnah seems like them, not like me. I have to be Moidala MS over here. In other words, this disease, this sickness, I had a little fever, whatever it is, shtickle corona, there's a reason why. Mistama, I was wrong. Now, he's being medayik from the words. A very, very dakis dika diok here. If the Tanna Kama holds that there is no bath, even the first day, second day, third day, all days is just sprinkling and no bath at all, so it makes a lot of sense where he says, Marchitzin es hakotam. Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah argues, and what does he say? Bathe the baby. Why? Because everybody else held sprinkle the baby. Comes Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah says, bathe the baby. However, but if the Tanna Kama agrees that you bathe the baby on the first and second day, just the machlokes is on the third day. Hi, Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah marchitzin. So then the lashon is a little off. It shouldn't say Rebbe Elazar marchitzin. It should say Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah oimer af marchitzin. Even on the third day, he should say even. Since everybody is talking about bathing and the whole machlokes is on the third day, so then Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah shouldn't just say bathe him. Rebbe Elazar should say even on the third day you should bathe him. You hear it's a little dakizdik. If nobody discussed bathing, the Tanna Kama says sprinkle, so then the word, you don't have to say even bathe, you say bathe him. You hold sprinkle, I hold bathe. But if they agree that you could bathe the baby on the first and second days, just the whole machlokes is on the third day, so the proper lashon should be, I hold even. He should stick in a word even on the third day, not just bathe him, because they also say bathe on the first and second day. Okay. Calls Rav Dimi, and it says in the name of Rabbi Lazar that the halachos like Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah that you could bathe the baby all 3 days. Havu ba b'marova. So they asked the question in Marova in Eretz Yisrael. Harachot is called gufa. Harachot is mila. What does that mean? You can bathe the baby. Are you bathing his entire body, or are you just bathing the bris? So Rabbi Yaakov comes along. Mistabra harachot is called gufa. Logically speaking, it makes sense that we're talking about the whole body. Because if you're only talking about the mila itself, why is it any different than any wound a person has? Rav says, if a person has a little wound, you can bathe it. It's not a problem. It's not considered shchikas hamanim. You're allowed to bathe with one aver. Comes Rav Yosef. What? We're talking about water that was boiled up on Shabbos. That's the chiddush. That even something that was boiled up on Shabbos, heated up on Shabbos, you're allowed to use it for a bris. This that Rav said that you're allowed to use hot water for a wound, he's talking about water that was warmed up before Shabbos. No connection. Masgul Rav Dimi. Who told you? Perhaps. So, what's the setup? You have a bayo sitting there with Rav Yosef, and you have Rav Dimi. And Rav Dimi and Rav Yosef says it's talking about, it was Rav Yosef. Matzkel Rav Yosef. Where's that bayo over here? Rav Dimi said this. Yeah, I know, but I'm just looking ahead, not ahead, before. Right, so Rav Yosef said, we're talking about water that was heated up before on Shabbos. Comes Rav Dimi and says, who told you? Maybe it's talking about water that was heated up before Shabbos. I wanted to jump in there and say an answer. Because of Rav Yosef. And Rav Yosef, who said that it's talking about water that was heated up on Shabbos, he's the one that answered Rav Dimi right away before I got a chance. But he basically, I wanted to say the same thing as Rav Yosef, he says. It's a sakana. So even water that was heated up on Shabbos, I can use it for Bris Mila. So here it goes. Here is just, he lays it out. Halachot Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. The halacha is you could bathe the baby the first, second, and third days. Even water that was heated up on Shabbos. Is called gufoy. Mila. Whether it's to wash the whole body of the baby, whether it's to wash just one aver. Because at the end of the day, it's a sakana. Gufa marav. No, so we just mentioned the halacha by Rav that if you have a wound on any part of the body, you can wash it on Shabbos. You don't have to worry. You can put oil, you can anoint it, anything that'll help the wound. Now Shmuel is concerned about shchikas hamamanim, doing a refu on Shabbos. So what do you do is you have a wound over here, you put the oil up here, and it drips down into the wound. You shouldn't put oil on top of a bandage to put on top of the wound. It seems like, not like Rav. Rav says it's not a problem. Put it directly on the wound. Says Gemara, you're talking about a bandage. That's not the same thing. I said you could put it on the wound itself. And you're talking about on the bandage. The bandage is different. Why? Because of the problem of schita. Toshma. Why? Just look at these words and see why this is different than what we just said. Now, this is different because it's already on the wound. You have a bandage on the wound, now you're pouring it on. It says you shouldn't do it. And that's similar to what Rav said, that you're allowed to put oil on the wound directly. Over here it says you shouldn't. So the difference is, one of these brises is talking about a bandage before you put it on the wound, and one is talking about a bandage that's already on the wound. That's very similar to putting directly on the wound, but still there's a problem of schita. Tanka will say the Shmuel. But we have a brisa like Shmuel that says, "Ei noisim chamim v'shemen al gabi makav b'Shabbos." You shouldn't, like Shmuel says, Aval noisim chutz lamaka, exactly like Shmuel says, you put it above the wound, v'shoises v'yored lamaka, and it drips down and goes into the wound. Tonu Rabbana. Nois nalagabi amaka moich yavesh usfoig yavesh. You could take a dry bandage and a dry sfoig, whatever, like a sponge. Avaloi gemi yavesh has some sort of moisture in it. Veloi kesisim yaveshim, and not dry bandage. Says the Gemara, Kashio, Ksisin, Aksisin. We started off saying, you're allowed to put a dry bandage on. Then we said, V'loi Ksisin Yaveshin. Loi Kashi. Ha bechadati, ha batiki. So what does chadati mean? Chadati means new. But Rashi says that new means that it wasn't on a wound. Not brand new out of a package, but rather it could be 45 years old, but it was never on a wound. So if it was never on a wound, it has healing powers. But if it was on a wound, even if it's brand new, it could be 5 minutes old, but it was on a wound, no good. The Rif learns chadati means that it's brand new. Brand new doesn't have, what does he say? Brand new is not mirapa, I think he says. Yeah, brand new is not mirapa, and old is mirapa. The Rosh goes on to say that perhaps there are not mechuluk even. There's no machloikas, because Rashi wasn't talking about brand new, but in brand new he'll also say, he would admit to the Rif that it doesn't heal. Omar Abaya, Shmamino Hani Kesisim Masu, and from here you see that bandages have healing powers even without ointment or anything else like that. Rabbi Isai, have a wonderful day, have a wonderful week. Tomorrow morning, Be'ezer Hashem, at 7:15.